Hi, I'm Whack.
Hey, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Weekly Orbit, episode 92. This is for March 7th, Friday, March 7th. We're doing heading towards spring here in the Northern Hemisphere. You guys down in Australia enjoying the last of your summer days as we here are looking forward to some warm weather. You know, everything around where I live, Whack, it just looks like shit. It's brown. It's kind of still cold. It had a little warm day yesterday, but it's just so, I'm so waiting for some green to come back. I don't know about you.
Yeah, we're all waiting for green in every aspect of our lives, right? The charts as well. But that's the same thing that happened here. So I live in the Midwest, and we had 2 months with snow on the ground, like from January basically until last week. We had snow on the ground, and now that everything's kind of melted, all the snow's melted, it's just the grass is all brown and horrible. The trees, there's still no leaves, so it's not a pretty sight. But hopefully, this within a month, within 6 weeks, I think everything will be green and luscious, and it's going to be good. So hopefully for crypto too.
I want to see a green and luscious chart of ETH and RPL.
Yes.
So maybe not this last week. Although this chart looks green, that's because they have it on the 24-hour. Let's go to 7-day. And of course, it's red. On the last week, we're down 5% on ETH. We're at 2,265. RPL, we are also down, I believe, on the 7-day. It's down 7%. The ETH ratio is at 0.0027. If we look at ETH ETF flows, it's all red, basically, except for Tuesday. We had a small inflow of about 15 million, but everything else, going back to last week, we had minus 42 million on Friday. Then you had minus 12 on March 3rd. Yesterday, a big 63 million withdrawal from ETH. So markets they're wondering what's going on the macro front. You got the U.S. threatening its friends in Mexico and Canada with big tariffs. I saw consumer confidence is looking down. So you think macro is playing a factor here on suppressing these assets?
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. So if you go back to the ETH chart, you'll see something really interesting in that. So on Sunday, there was a huge vertical move up that took us from around $2,100 all the way up to around $2,550. And that was on the news of Donald Trump saying Ethereum's ETH and BTC, Bitcoin, are going to be the heart of a strategic crypto reserve in the US. And alongside that, he also talked about Solana, Sol, Cardano's ADA, and Ripple's XRP being in there as well. So all those tokens got huge pumps based on this news. That was on Sunday, so the market pumped bigly, and then it was like, okay, that's fine. Like, the market's doing, maybe that will be the bottom. And then the next day, on Monday, as soon as the markets opened, we got news that the US is going to start its tariffs with Canada and Mexico on March 4th. And then we actually got new laws. So ETH went down to $1,993 on Binance, $1,191, I think, on some other exchanges. So it broke that 2,000 amount. But then since then, it's rallied up around 12% since then. But it's been a tumultuous time in crypto. If you on this chart, can you press 1 month and then 3 months, and then you can kind of see these like up and down jagged movements that have kind of been happening along the way, of like a pump and then a dump and a pump and a dump and a pump and a dump. And I think people are just like getting to that point now where they just expect that this is going to just keep happening. There'll be some news that comes out of the Trump government that will pump the markets, and then something will happen like in the broader macro sphere to dump the markets, and it's just going to happen over and over again. And I don't know.
This pump dump chart looks terrible because it's a little pump and a bigger dump. A little pump, and we started this. If you go back 3 months, December 6th, ETH was at over 4,000. We were 4,018. Right now we're at 2,200. We've almost dropped 50%. Since Trump was elected, and I think a lot of folks are feeling, hey, what's going on here? I thought we were going to be, doing price discovery on new all-time highs, and instead we're down almost 50%. on ETH since the election.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. Personally, I think I'm not a fan of Trump economics. The guy figured out a way to bankrupt his own casino back in the day in New Jersey. And last time he was president, they end up having huge tax cuts, huge deficits. It's like giving a child a blank checkbook to write. So we'll see. I'm kind of a pessimist on this. We were talking prior to recording. Perhaps there's blood in the streets at some point, and then the assets are then bought up by all the billionaires who are sitting on the sidelines with all their cash at some point late this year or maybe in 2026. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a fan of burn the village down to save it. But perhaps, I'm not sure what the people with pulling the levers here are thinking. I know Jerome Powell's probably wondering, boy, I was going to have such a great legacy since the greatest Fed chairman since Paul Volcker. And now what is going on here? How do I figure out how to navigate this minefield?
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, I think you saying, I don't know is the key to the problem here, because markets don't like uncertainty. And there's just so much uncertainty in the markets right now, in the short term, in the medium term, in the long term. No one knows what's going on. No one knows what, Trump is going to wake up and what he's going to say that day. And that is putting, I think, a lot of pressure on just where we are right now. And sadly, it's going to be, I think, a while before we get some clarity and some sense of direction with what's happening. It's going to take a while.
I know one of my understanding, Trump measures, one of the measuring metrics he uses to measure his success is the stock market, the S&P 500, up or down, up or down. At some point, his obsession with tariffs may come to an end if, the markets keep saying, we don't like this, and the, S&P continues to go down and down and down. Perhaps then is when he reverses course on some of this kind of nonsense with in fights with your allies like Canada.
Just yesterday, I was listening to a macro analyst that was actually making the counterpoint to that, saying that in the first Trump presidency, that was the case, that Trump cared about the stock market. But now what he cares about more is the bond market. And that is what we should be looking at more closely to get a sentiment for what Trump wants instead of the stock market. So the stock market, I think the idea is that, that's going to come into pain, and basically that's okay if the stocks have some pain because they've had so many good years. They're feasted. Even up to last year, they're hitting all-time highs. Even recently, a couple of weeks ago, stock market was at an all-time high. So it's they're feasted. They've had their feast. Now it's time to get the interest rates under control and the bonds under control. So I think that is actually a really useful analytic and a tool to look at, to see what Trump is trying to do. And those numbers might be more important than the stock market numbers overall.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I saw the 10-year, which is one of their key, the 10-year Treasury bond has gone down, but not for the reasons they want. I think it's
exactly.
My understanding is the bond investors are thinking of lower economic growth. The bonds that they have, they want them to sell and buy the 10-year, which will lower the rates on the 10-year, which is kind of the standard that banks and other financial institutions use to, for mortgages and things. So that's their idea. Hey, maybe if we really threaten Canada with tariffs, they'll sell off some of their dollars and buy 10-year Treasury bonds. That's the idea. But the markets have already spoken. They've done 10-year has actually gone down. However, not for the reasons Trump wanted. It's because of lower forecasting of economic growth.
With the stock market, it's kind of like a positive negative, right? If the stock market's going up, it's good. If the stock market's going down, it's bad, right? That's, I think, quite clear for people to kind of understand that. With the bond market, however, you can have bullish. It could be bullish and going up, or it could be bullish and going down, or it could be bearish and going up, or it could be bearish and going down. It's just a lot more complicated to kind of understand what the reasons for it going up or down are. So, I think over the next few months, we're all going to become bond experts and macroeconomic experts.
Yeah.
But
We'll see.
It's not, it's the main thing is, the main issue is, I think there's this uncertainty in the market, and that is just driving everything like negatively.
Yep.
Yeah.
Chaos is what they call it.
Yep.
Okay, so let's move on to some rocket pool news. Before we do, one of the stats I want to check in on is the rETH ratio, the rETH discount. Now I saw earlier this week the discount was it was like 0.0004, which is basically zero, and on par. Now we're back up to 0.479 as of this morning. So that was nice to be right on peg, almost exactly on peg. Everybody else is a little off as well. You look at STETH, they're still pretty good at 0.058. Swell is at 0.32. Coinbase CBETH is at 0.3. So what's do we have a reason why we've kind of bumped up a little bit since earlier in the week when we were at par?
Yeah, I think the reason is just that people, like the LST space is kind of contracting a little bit, and people are just seeing that it's a peg, and then they kind of want to sell out of it, sell out their position maybe. That's what it comes down to, and we're trying to counteract that with people using the exit arb, and that has worked, but it might be just that it kind of becomes a downward spiral pretty much, where people sell their rETH, it causes a discount that makes people exit their validators, which brings it back to peg, which people see is back at peg now, so then they want to sell their rETH again. So it's this like really unfortunate like cycle that we kind of like are trapped in right now, and I think the only way we kind of get out of it is when people will be allowed to redeem their rETH at the protocol level through the protocol itself. So they'll go to the protocol and say, hey, we have this 1,000 rETH, we want ETH back for it. Instead of on the secondary market, we want to go to the protocol to do it. And then the protocol would have a mechanism for exiting validators and giving those people back their rETH. That's the only thing that will, I think, give long-term confidence to people that, we can maintain a peg, because they'll always be redeemed at peg. And once we have that, then hopefully that should stop this cycle that we're in. It's slowed. It seems like it's slowed down a little bit as well, which is good. The people who are going to sell their rETH have already sold for the most part. The people who are going to exit their validators have already exited for the most part. It's only when I think the discount gets back up again above 1% that we'll get a new wave of exits. But each time we do that, the protocol shrinks in terms of TVL. We're losing rETH. We're losing validators. That's not good. But sadly, we have no other mechanism right now to do this. So yeah, there is actually the governance stuff going through that will potentially change some of the way that rETH is prioritized in terms of exits and how that might look. But otherwise, this is kind of where we're at right now.
Yep. So what I'm wondering, Whack, is with sentiment changing, perhaps folks thinking, hey, the first 6 months of 2025, I want to be liquid. I want to be ready to hit the sell button. I've been holding ETH for 2 cycles now, and I'm ready to sell. So I'm going to exit my validators and be ready to hit that sell button. Now that macros changed, we're down about 40 or 50% since November. I'm wondering if more folks are going to stick tight, maybe not exit their validators and just ride it out, which will then stem the TVL will kind of remain, or at least not continue to decrease in Rocket Pool. And maybe the rETH discount will be near par. What do you think? Is that something that, I know that's something I've thought about, because I had plans to exit I have an IRA, and I thought, when things get near all-time high, maybe I'll take some profit. But I haven't exited. I've kept those validators going because I thought, it doesn't look like this is going to be at all-time high anytime soon. So any thoughts on that, on sentiment?
I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know. It could go either way. It could be that people are just going to strap back in for the long term again, or they'll just stay liquid and see what happens. I think that, this idea, 3%, it doesn't seem like that much. The cost that you get could be a lot higher than that. If you miss, your window of selling because of that, they'd rather not take that risk. So I think it's going to be people understanding that we've had, this is over now. They have to actually believe that this cycle is over for them to get back into staking or looking longer term again, like strapping in. At the moment, I don't think people believe that. I certainly don't believe that. Like, I haven't restarted my validators that I exited a few months ago or nearly a year ago now. I haven't restarted those validators, and I'm not looking to restart those validators any point soon. My RPL is liquid, my ETH is liquid, and I'm going to keep it like that for a while until I understand that, like, the market's done. And I guess that would be a kind of capitulation to restart those validators for me. So I guess other people are just thinking in the same way. Maybe is that they're gonna hold on and just wait because the cost is higher than the chance of missing it, than the rewards you get, right? Like that 3% or 4% if you're a node operator, it might not be worth it for those people.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and bull markets tend to have two or three times where things go down 30% or 40% corrections,
Absolutely.
right? So perhaps we're in one of those. Perhaps we're in starting a bear market. I guess we won't know until time, goes by, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But if it is the case that we've had our bull market and that's it, like this would be the most disappointing crypto cycle ever. Like it's just everything has broken. Like if that's the case, which I don't believe is the case, but if it turns out that we've had our peak, then Bitcoin going up 50% from its previous all-time high is barely beating inflation over 4 years. Then we have Solana did well, got new all-time high, but ETH not a new all-time high. A whole lot of the other previously established like tokens didn't get any all-time highs or anything like that. So it would be very, very disappointing, I think, crypto market. But that's why I don't think it's done yet. I'm still waiting to see maybe 9 months. Maybe that'll get pushed out a bit more depending on the macro factors. But it looks like global liquidity is starting to increase again. And with global liquidity increasing, there'll be more money out there. It should mean that crypto prices start going back up soon, maybe within the next month or two, hopefully.
Okay, we will see.
Yeah.
Okay, on to some rocket pool news. So one of the bright spots is regulation in the U.S. is being relaxed on crypto, and the SEC has dropped its case against Consensys. And this involves rocket pool because in that complaint written by the SEC, they stated that they specifically mentioned rocket pool in Lido as being illegal securities that Consensys was shelling through MetaMask. And so that's been dropped. And that lifts a cloud over rocket pool. Not that we were directly being sued by the SEC, but just the thought that we're even mentioned. This relatively small little protocol mentioned in this big lawsuit was not a good look for rocket pool. So Jasper, he stated here in his tweet, rocket pool is free. A deep seed of doubt and worry over my head has dissipated. This is a victory for rETH and DeFi. And so that's good news. Do you think that Joe Lubin over at Consensys is going to become, you think he's been untied here as well? You think he's going to become more active, more involved, more vocal now that he doesn't have to worry about lawsuits from the SEC and coming down on his head?
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. That's what it is. So Joe Lubin we have to remember, right? So Consensys isn't just, an Ethereum based company and founded by Ethereum co-founder Joe Lubin. Consensys is also an investor in Rocket Pool. They are a ODAO member. They are they have stake in Rocket Pool, right? Like the actual company itself. Like they were one of the only VC kind of style investments that happened all those years ago. So the ties between Consensys and Rocket Pool go way back, and that's legitimate ties there. So with Rocket Pool being mentioned in that lawsuit, like that was not good. Like because Rocket Pool's an Australian company, kind of hope that it's outside of the jurisdiction of the SEC. But the SEC, as long as there's an American who buys RPL or rETH, then it's under the SEC's jurisdiction, right? In the sense, if they want to do business in the US, that's what it is. So Joe Lubin, I think, kind of saw the directional winds changing a couple of years ago with Gary Gensler's SEC and saw that, the direction wasn't good. So I think he kind of made himself a bit smaller on Twitter and didn't put himself out there as much in terms of, championing Ethereum. And now that this lawsuit has been dismissed and it looks like, the consensus is all in the clear. I'm really curious to see how this is going to impact their relationship with Rocket Pool again, and whether or not they're going to get more involved. Because a few years ago, there was this notion of like something called Gigabread, like the biggest news that would end all news basically in the Rocket Pool community. And it turned out that was consensus staking with their ETH, because they have a lot of ETH, staking their ETH with Rocket Pool. And what ended up happening was, this SEC lawsuit just put a huge cloud over everything, and they shrunk in terms of what they were doing. Now, however, does this put it back on the table? I don't know. Like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'd be very curious to see what happens between Rocket Pool team and the community and Consensys, and seeing if those bridges could be made again. But I've already seen Joe Lubin already be a lot more active on Twitter than he was in the last year or year and a half. He's posting tweets more. He's more bullish about Ethereum on Twitter as well. So awesome stuff. I hope it
and he's got some giga bags he's carrying. He's got he's got what, 100,000 or he's got more than 100,000
ETH. Yeah. So I think the conservative estimate is he's got 1 million ETH, and then the conspiracy estimate is that he's got 3 or 4 million ETH.
That's nuts. And there was talk I remember seeing a couple months or a month ago, like, hey, why don't you Joe Lubin, could you be Ethereum's sailor and use Consensys as this vehicle to, YouTube bonds, convertible bonds, take the cash, buy ETH, and then just make it this perpetual cycle. And I remember he had big eyes. Someone wrote that. And
winking face, yeah.
Wink. I wonder if he's thinking about something like that. But seeing that I think it's, we won't know. It could be nothing, but the fact that this lawsuit is over with frees up Joe Lubin to maybe explore Rocket Pool more. Maybe he does the sailor thing with Consensys with ETH, but it could be potentially really bullish for Rocket Pool. I think that Joe Lubin is now free.
Yeah, and if nothing else, this is just a lawsuit that Rocket Pool was mentioned in is not a thing anymore. So at the very least, it's great in that regard. At the very worst, at the very least, at the very best, it could be a lot more. It could be Consensys opening channels with Rocket Pool again. But let's just take the win that we already have and worry about what might come later.
Right. So let's go to the next item on the agenda here. And Ken came back from ETH Denver. He opined some thoughts he had in the Discord, one of which was, we were just talking about regulation, the lawsuit. And when we are coming up with ideas for Saturn 1, Saturn 2, the idea is, how do we create value in the RPL token? And, if you're able to stake RPL, are you going to get ETH rewards? Are you we're gonna use that to buy and burn? And there's 3 different mechanisms. And he had heard that, and Langers later confirmed that the legal team came back and said, with this relaxed environment in Washington, that the lawyers are saying, hey, move forward with other, don't be hindered by any potential legal concerns, because in their idea or their opinion, there is none. So, he says, Langer said, that's correct. Legal review has found no problems moving forward with either value accrual solution. So that's great, because this was another decision that the community is going to have to make, is how do we put value back into RPL? Which of the 3 are we going to choose?
There were a few different ideas, right? So the 3 main ideas were, we keep it as closely similar to what we have right now, is where you're a node operator, only node operators can stake their RPL. As a node operator, you stake your RPL, and with that RPL, then you get, for a while, RPL rewards, but also ETH rewards. And then after a while, the RPL rewards would finish, and you would only get ETH rewards. So you deposit and stake your RPL, and with that, you get ETH rewards. So that was called the voter share. That was actually the most conservative of the different ideas. The other 2 that were more contentious, and the one that we were kind of curious about, was the buy and burn. So the money that comes into ETH rewards that were allocated for RPL, some of that would go to voter share, and the other part of it would go to buying the RPL token on the market and then burning that token. The third one was buy and provide liquidity. So you would get ETH that comes into the protocol, then that would just be deposited into like a balancer pool as one-sided liquidity. So then that would boost, RPL liquidity and the price as well, with that. So those were the different ideas. The one that was most conservative, which is what we're doing with Saturn 1, is, the RPL voter share. So the voters, people who stake their RPL will get some ETH rewards. It was with Saturn 2 that we wanted to do this surplus value and what was going to happen with that. So that the community will now be able to vote on what they think is the best, not on what they think is the most legally prudent. So that's really exciting.
Do you have an opinion on which one you like the best?
I'm partial to all three of them. Like, I think my ranking would be probably voter share. So it kind of maintains that relationship between staking RPL and getting rewards for that. Then second would be buy and liquidity provide. I think the burn has a good idea behind it. Like, it sounds good, but in practicality, it's not as good. And then the burn is also good. Like, it's a nice mechanism, and it's like it's a nice meme. But of the three, I think that's the one that I prefer the least. However, my ideas are very initial right now, and they've not been solidified in any way, shape, or form. And I'm willing to be convinced any which way of those.
Well, we have on our next news item, the Rocket Pool Saturn 1 staking calculator that was funded by the GMC. You can play around with the numbers. And this does the voter share, right? Is this what this is going to calculate for you?
Saturn 1, yeah.
This
it's not
is
Saturn
1.
2. Yeah.
Yeah, Saturn 2 is still under works, but Saturn 1 we can play with.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, if you play around with the numbers here, you can see that, you could potentially be earning some really nice ETH rewards for your RPL. And of course, you'll still be earning your RPL rewards as well. So your RPL should look quite good potentially if things go well. Depending on what numbers you put in, obviously, like depending on how things skew, you might be getting a little bit less. In other ways, you might be getting a little bit more. But some of those details make it look quite good. So
yeah, so let's play around
there's
a
nice
little
little
bit.
calculator here. Sorry?
Yeah. Let's play around one example. Let's put in 10 million as the amount of RPL staked, because it's about 21 million right now, RPL total. So let's do half. So 11 million. So 50%. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then total mega pool validators. So this is how many validators do we have right now?
Right now we've got around 20,000, maybe somewhere around there. I don't know the exact number. But remember, those are 8 ETH validators. So when it comes to mega pools, those will be 4 ETH validators. So you'll have to keep that in mind as well. So it might not be that everyone converts as well. So
right.
Maybe this number you could put like 30,000. So
let's do 30.
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll just keep the ratio right now
what it is right now.
It is. And then for so let's say you had one validator.
That top part tells you. Then it says the total amount of ether flowing to the voters is 174 ETH every 28 days. So that is based purely on the income that validators receive. You could go to advanced settings as well that can let you tweak some other things, but who's going to get how much and what the APRs are and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. But that's like if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of it. But then now what you can do here is you can put in the number of validators that you have and how much RPL you have staked. So, for example, if you have just 4 Ether validator and you have, let's say, like 1,000, 500 RPLs. Yeah, sure.
Put 500 RPL.
Okay.
Just see what happens.
Press enter, and then it will tell you that you'll be earning like 0.0079 ETH coming from the staked RPL, and then 0.012 ETH that's coming from your validator. So you'll be getting 7.6% APY in ETH on your RPL, which is really, really nice. And then on top of that, you'll also be receiving some RPL rewards as well. So yeah, it's that just tells you it looks really, really good. Of course, there's a lot of assumptions in the numbers that you put in here. So keep that in mind. But yeah, you have to press enter for the change to get noticed.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a cool calculator. The assumptions are there's not many of them, but at least gives you a ballpark. You can kind of play around. The bottom line is you can see where you're getting a boost. If you're just a solo staker, you're you're kind of losing out because with this, if you stick with Rocket Pool, you're going to earn your APY is going to be higher.
Yeah, so
No
just
doubt.
your regular staking APY is going to be higher, of course, to begin with, just on your ETH. But now with your RPL, it will be even higher than that. Like the numbers are actually looking really, really good. So,
Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty exciting to see.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
Let's move on to wins for the week. And so let's go to my win. And I'm just going to, I think the GMC report here that Schifrin put together, it's so beautiful. And he did this last year too. I remember, and in a beautiful visual format, just sums up what the GMC has been up to this year in terms of grants, bounties, and retrospective rewards. My win is that Rocket Pool has a guy like Schifrin who is on top of all this. He's been good with the weekly orbit. Usually he'll say, "Hey Pat, your grant is due next month. You should renew it or put in your application." He's really on top of things. So I think it's great that we have really dedicated folks in the community who step up and do really great work. And so that's my win this week is Schifrin. And I'm not just doing this because we got a grant application that's going to be coming before the GFC. It just happened that this is the time of year that the Schifrin puts this report together. But I just, when you were covering this on the show the other day, I was thinking, man, this is so cool. We just got good people working for Rocket Pool and Schifrin in particular. So that's my win.
Yeah. Schifrin's a huge win, definitely, for the community. My win for this week is that I'm Muslim, and it's Ramadan. Ramadan has started, which is a holy month for Muslims of fasting. And the thing that I love about Ramadan so much is it's a really great time for people to spend time with family and loved ones, and just to reflect on their position in the world and all of these other things, and time for worship as well. But that's been something that's been really nice for me, is that I've been able to talk to friends and family, and it's been a nice excuse to reignite some friendships that had kind of fizzled away over the last year, and talking to people that I've not talked to in a long time, and just share positive, happy sentiments. I think that's a big win for me.
So here's a personal question: with Ramadan and when you're doing your fasting, do you find that do you drop any weight during Ramadan? How's that work? Do you look forward to it in a way? Like, hey, winter's been tough. I'm going to drop 10 pounds here.
Yeah, so
Or 5 pounds.
this is really interesting because there's a thread under trading called Wax Weight Loss Journey. And it actually started last Ramadan. So I was just actually looking back to it because I actually posted in that again today, a couple of days ago. Is for me personally, I do use it as a time to focus more on my diet and what I'm eating and trying to be careful with that. What's really funny is because people will actually use it as Ramadan is time to be a lot more social with friends and family, and eating their meals with others, and that the people go to restaurants more in some cases, or make more luxurious meals for their fast opening. So some of those can be really unhealthy and fatty foods, and you'll see that some people actually gain weight in Ramadan, which is really, really funny. But for me, I try to watch what I'm eating more than I normally do, so I do end up losing weight, which is just a happy benefit and a happy side effect of it. Yeah, that's really funny that you brought that up, because last year, during the course of Ramadan, I lost nearly 15 pounds, I think, Ramadan and a little period after it. And this year, I'm hoping to do something similar, hopefully.
Wow, yeah. I mean, it's about a month long, correct? Mm-hmm. So if you lost, that's a lot of weight to lose in 1 month.
Yeah, 3 pounds a week
but
is what I'm kind of thinking of.
I see. Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
So if you lost 10 pounds in a month, that would be good.
Yeah,
Right, just from
10 pounds, yeah, pretty much.
Then the key is to keep it off, right, afterwards.
That's the hard part. So, yeah. But actually, what's really funny is I was looking back at the thread that I made, and on the first of Ramadan, then, I'm still about 6 or 7 pounds lighter now than I was on the first of Ramadan then. So that's a win in my eyes.
Do you guys? So forgive my naivete, but with do you guys in Christianity there's Easter. In the Polish tradition is you have Dingus Day. It's the day after Easter. And with Dingus Day is huge in the city I live in. It's it's actually it's really fun holiday. It's crazy. if you ever want to learn more about it, just go on, do a search for Anderson Cooper on CNN, Dingus Day, and you'll see he did a thing on it, and he can't stop laughing because it's so funny. However, what it is you've at the beginning of the Easter season, there's Lent. It's where you give up something, and then Easter comes, and the day after is a celebration, and that's where you say, "Hey, I gave up chocolate all of the Easter season. Now I'm gonna have a lot of chocolate." In Ramadan, is there a day after Ramadan's over that everyone has a big feast and holiday and celebrate? They're like, "Hey, I don't have to fast all the time."
Yeah, so it's called Eid, and Muslims have two Eids. There's the Eid that celebrates the end of Ramadan, and then there's the Eid that celebrates the Hajj pilgrimage, which is when people go to Mecca. So that's going to be 2 months and 10 days after the first Eid. So that is a huge celebration. Those are the two big, celebrations for Muslims in the Muslim calendar, and Eid is one of those. So that will be here in about 3.5 weeks or 4 weeks from now.
That's great. Yeah. On Dingus Day, let's see, girls have squirt guns, and guys have pussy willows. So if you like a girl, you go up to the girl and you hit her, you whack her with a pussy willow, and if she likes you, she takes a squirt gun and squirts it at you. It's so silly, but it's really fun. It's a lot of food, a lot of Polish food.
Nice.
Obviously, people like to drink beer.
Yeah.
I usually bartend on that day, and it's a really fun because people have just a good time. There's no St. Patrick's Day is usually out of control, and people are drunk and being stupid and fights and drama, and Dingus Day is not like that. It's just people are drinking beer, but they're also eating a lot, and I think it helps keep people from getting really stupid drunk and being dumb. Yeah. But there's bad polka music playing. People are dancing and eating and drinking. It's really it's a great holiday. It's one of my favorites. And I'm not even Polish.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
Anyways, thanks for joining us, everyone, and listening to us ramble on about Ramadan and Dingus Day. We'll see you next week, and thanks for watching. And make sure you like and subscribe. And we'll see you then. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.